So on the occasion of the 45th Foundation Day of National Institute of Urban Affairs, I, Mehreen Mattu, welcome you all for this webinar on formal and informal sanitation practices. So this is the agenda, and we are thankful to all of you who have joined from different time zones. We can see many international participants who have joined this webinar. Taking a look at the speakers, we have very eminent and high-profile speakers. Our keynote speaker is Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, the director, NIUA. The speakers come with a vast experience on ground with regard to urban sector and WASH, starting from S. Vishwanath from Biome, Vijaya, Eklavya Prasad from Make by Abhiyan, Miss Alka Pararicha, Mr. N. Meenakshi Sundaram, Saji Sebastian, and two younger researchers, I will call them young, Miss Rakshita and Nikita Harikrishnan. So this webinar is timely as we will be talking about the sanitation scenario of different cities across India, and it coincides with the three national missions which were being launched in the during the union budget by Government of India: the Jal Jeevan mission, the Swachh Bharat mission 2.0, and the 15th Finance Commission. Since 2014, there has been an unprecedented momentum with regard to sanitation challenges in our country. ODF, access to toilet, behavior change was what was the core issue, or core purpose being addressed in Swachh Bharat mission, while Swachh Bharat 2.0 talks about the entire sanitation value chain from access to toilet to reuse and recycle, and it also talks about solid waste management. The funding of the components is being unmarked, and yes, there is funds with regard to IEC and capacity building. If you look at the salient features, one thing is much more clear in SBM 2.0, that there is the outcome, expected output is that 3.7 lakh toilets to be constructed, 13,000 MLD capacity STPs, and 890, that is almost 900 KLD capacity FSTPs. And also beyond that, they would want to go through the business model where reuse and recycle of wastewater sludge and selling them, so as to have a more circular economy per se. Now, talking about the Jal Jeevan mission, we all know that it is applicable to all the towns. It aims at 100% functional household tap connection, but it also talks about the 100% treatment of wastewater and fecal sludge in 500 cities. It promotes reuse and recycle, which we will be showcasing through the learnings in this webinar. Coming to the salient features, one important salient feature of Jal Jeevan, which is relevant to this webinar, is the 20% water demand met through the reuse of wastewater. Now, coming to the 15th Finance Commission, if we talk about the funding allocation for million-plus cities, about 66% grant is earmarked for improving water and sanitation service. And for funding for urban local bodies less than 1 million, it's about 30% grant, which is for sanitation and solid waste. Even the policies, the guidelines which have been issued, be it Swachh Bharat, Water Plus, or the advisory on on-site and off-site sanitation, they all are ensuring sustainability of sanitation status achieved through ODF, ODF plus, ODF plus plus, and efficient treatment and disposal of wastewater. And all these missions will help us to achieve the larger goal of SDG 6.0 particularly, but also SDG 11, which is about the sustainable cities and communities. In this endeavor, National Institute of Urban Affairs, which is a think tank of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, its SCBP, that is the Sanitation Capacity Building Platform team, is engaged in providing sanitation, non-sewer sanitation solutions with regard to septage and wastewater management. It helps cities and towns to move beyond ODF. However, our core area is capacity building, but over the years, we have closely worked, provide technical assistance to at state level. Starting from UP, Rajasthan, now we are working closely with Uttarakhand to provide citywide inclusive sanitation. And apart from that, we are also involved in action and field-based research, and these are some of our documents. And in line of this, we have we are doing a research work with Biome on the sanitation scenario of 9 different cities, which the webinar is focusing on. And the discussion point of this webinar is understanding the priorities of the national mission on wastewater and septage management, interventions to improve wastewater and septage management at city level, moving towards reuse of wastewater and septage to have a more circular economy. So this is all about just giving you a background about what we will be talking about in this webinar. Some housekeeping rules I would be keeping in mind the restrictions with regard to the participants. The webinar will be recorded and made available on the NIUA website. It's also streamed live on Facebook. So this was the context for the webinar. I would request our director, Mr. Hitesh Vedya, to please address the audience and give the speak.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Marine. And first of all, thank you everyone joining us today and sparing some time for joining us to discuss this very important topic on formal and informal sanitation practices and lessons from Indian cities. I think it's also important today that we are talking this such an important topic after COVID. We have health issues which we have gone through last couple of not couple of months, but last almost one and a half year. And sanitation became one of the biggest challenge within the cities. And this topic is very important because we are also celebrating 45th anniversary of NIUA. So journey of NIUA for last 45 years. How we have maneuvered or made bridging the gap between practice and the policy, and how it has contributed through a really great research and capacity building and advocacy efforts of the institute. So I particularly feel that today's topic, and I will not get into the details because I think Marine did talk about Swachh Bharat mission and JJM Jal Jeevan mission urban, which are now being launched and do talk about fecal sludge with a goal of protecting water bodies, integrated wastewater and septage management planning as a way forward to support sanitation activities and move away from open defecation free cities to more onto a wastewater management, fecal sludge, and looking at a whole sanitation into a larger perspective. So I think that's an area where we are moving. We are doing a lot of challenges we are facing during last thing. NIUA being the think tank, and I did tell yesterday also that we are trying to look at it how this thinking and tanking, we can really bridge that gap between thinking and tanking and become a more effective and organization which state and cities can start seeing value into it, and how we can really help, handhold, provide technical assistance to state and cities which really need those guidance, those directions, and really move towards the new urban agenda for India, and also position India urban story at local and global level. So that's the challenge which we are working with, and this 45 years of this journey where a lot of stalwarts have really worked over here, and now the mentor is on me, and I am steering this organization forward, and we are looking forward. A lot of support and research becomes a starting point to really do anything better, and that's where we are saying a good research can really bridge the gap, what is happening at the ground level, and how we can really influence the policy contours, and what should be the best way to do that. Missions are designed, but if we can uh, 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 with a lot of inputs coming back from the institution like us and other partner institutions uh, who will provide those inputs to design the missions, and also help in implementing or making a midterm corrections during the mission. So that has been a lot of learning from SBM 1.0 to SBM 2.0, Amrut to now Jal Jeevan mission. A lot of learnings which during our whole journey last 5-6 years have been to support ministry. I think has really helped the policy contours, policy leadership to design the contours of this mission. So I particularly, not patting my back, but an organization like NIUA and the partner organizations who have really helped in steering this urbanization journey of the country. NIUA has been promoting through our SCBP platform for last 7-8 years. We are promoting non-sewer sanitation as an outcome of field-based and practices, and taking a practical consideration for Indian cities, which have been formed by multiple research studies which NIU has done. And non-sewer sanitation has therefore become an example of quality research driving policy changes at the national level, which has in turn nudged policy shifts both at the national, state, and city level. So I think we have contributed quite a bit in this direction, and with the support of all of you. And we want to take this journey because research and capacity building is going to be the key focus area when we are talking about what is pre-COVID or post-COVID or business as usual to the new way of doing business. I think learning from the cities, learning from the great research will really make pave the way for how we want to really take the new direction on both research and handholding and capacity building of cities. So I congratulate all of you to support us in this endeavor. And as I was saying, that recognizing the importance of research on ongoing, we are talking about this ongoing research study, which we have done with association from Biomi Environmental Trust. And I found that Vishwanath is like an old friend. And I can say that it's like, we met after 30 years, like a Kumbh Ka Mela, 2 Kumbh have gone, and after we have started talking, and I have been, from my first journey job when I did it in Pune until I have always have admired and I was always inspired by his knowledge, his work, and I always been following up. But we met on a Zoom call yesterday only. So I look forward at the study which his trust has done on practice of sustainable urban sanitation learning from Indian cities. And I think it's a timely contribution because we are talking about new missions, the way new missions can be implemented. We are talking about the new way of doing business at a state and city level, new way of new approaches to really handle the capacity buildings. And I think these learnings from this study, which will really help urban local bodies face these challenges and work towards wastewater, fecal sludge, and septage management, and allow to cater the sanitation need of households in holistic manner. So I won't get into the detail because I think Marine has already talked about these 2 missions, and I look forward to the preliminary findings of this study, which we will be working again with the the Biomi Trust to really finalize those findings. And it's not only a data, but how that data can be utilized to make a policy decisions. So congratulate to SCBP team to do this great study. Congratulate Biomi Environmental Trust to work with us and also all the partners which are there in the and eminent panel who is there right now in this call, and all the participants. Thank you for being with us in 45 years of this journey. We look forward to continue work with you moving forward, and we'll be happy to have your suggestions, your guidance, your direction, how you as a city manager, city leaders, or a practitioners at a local level want to see a think tank at a national level anchoring and steering the urbanization discourse in the country. So with that, I hand over back to Marine to start the proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your inspiring speech. And we will try our best to come up with quality content. Now, I would invite Vishwanath to set the context with regard to the research work, the preliminary findings. So over to you, Vishwanath.
Kumud Mela has gone a lot better over the years. The sanitation is a wonder to marvel at, and people don't bichadify as they used to, but it's such a pleasure to have met after 30 years on the web yesterday, but also today. Let me just be very brief about the study. The study is still in progress, and we'll be able to be finalizing the report shortly, right, in a couple of weeks. So that's a caveat I want to put before the audience. What we were intending to do was to more focus on the end of the pipe space of sanitation practices. What happens to fecal sludge after the pit is empty? What happens to wastewater after it leaves our cities, treated or untreated? That was the sort of bias with which we approached the study to try and understand how are people engaging with it. So therefore, the informal sanitation practice and the formal sanitation practice also combined together. So it's not just fecal sludge, we're also looking at wastewater, and we're essentially looking at post-city, what happens, or post-town. Thanks to COVID, we could not physically meet. This was a quick study, but we were very lucky to assemble a very nice and experienced team, as well as a team of youngsters from various parts of the country. You'll see that we picked Dhanbad in Jharkhand, where Ecological Industrial did the study, from Gujarat, Alka Palrecha, studying for a PhD. She picked Unja and Rajkot, and she had bring that across to us. So Meenakshi Natarajan from Chennai, he helped bring the Chennai case study to us. Alappuzha and Thiruvananthapuram came to us thanks to Shaji and Vijaya. And in Tumkuru, Devanahalli and Bengaluru, which is in Karnataka, my young colleagues Rakshita, Nikita, Shubha all participated. Just to give you a flavor of the kind of cities, we've chosen metropolitan cities, Bengaluru and Chennai. Huge ones. What are they doing with wastewater? What are they doing with sludge? But we've also chosen small ones like Unja, Devanahalli. Devanahalli had one of the first FSTPs in India. How is it performing? How was it doing before? How is it doing now? What are the lessons to be learned from that? Just broad, quick lessons. So broadly, each city and each town will have a small 2 to 3 minute clip, which you will be able to hear, and the quick lessons that we are learning from there. Some of the interesting things that we noticed during studies is that sanitation seems to be affected by typology more than anything else. And the typology, for example, of a coastal town like Alpe or Trivandrum or Alappuzha or Thiruvananthapuram or Chennai, there's a propensity for a high groundwater table, heavy rains, is distinctly different from a Devanahalli or an Unja, which is semi-arid or almost arid, and where water is a prized position, wastewater is a prized commodity. And therefore farmers look at wastewater and fecal sludge in a completely different way. As say, compared to a city or a town where water is available in plenty, their wastewater does not seem to have too much of a value, neither does fecal sludge. So I will not get into the nitty-gritties right now. Some of the questions that were very interesting is how does a town like Dhanbad, which has completely on-plot sanitation system, how should it progress when it is aspirationally wanting to be a completely sewerage city? Should it, in the intermediate, look at fecal sludge management and then look comprehensively at sewerage if it so wants to? What should be the ladder that it will have to climb? That's a question that we have in mind. For a city like Bangalore, can the city be not a net consumer of water, but a net provider of water? If all the wastewater that the city of Bangalore generates is, let us say, treated and used for agriculture purpose, which will be shown by my colleague, well, can then the city become a net provider of water and nutrients? Right? So is this the broadening imagination? And if so, what should be the quality of the treatment for use? So that would be one question. Chennai, is doing a magnificent job of recovering energy from wastewater treatment plants. So what does the future of wastewater treatment plants itself look like in terms of the treatment, in terms of the energy impact that it has, the carbon emission impact that it has, and in terms of the recovery of nutrients and energy? So from Chennai, we'll have some examples. Alappuzha, which seeks to become a tourist city, the Venice of the East, what challenges does it have in managing wastewater where the groundwater table is high? So these are some of the kind of broad questions that we have. I'm not going through all cities or all towns, because you'll see and you'll get a flavor of it from each one of our researchers. So over to the research work and the information that is coming from the research, the preliminary information that's coming from the research, and I'll try to wind it up in the end and bring it all together and pose questions and learnings that we have got from the study. So over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Vishwanath, for giving an about the research. I would request my colleague Akshay play the video. We have purposely done this so that there's no interruption with regard to any glitches of internet.
Unjha. Unjha is a politically and economically influential nagarpalika in Gujarat. Population of the Unjha city is 62,000. The city is arid and has overexploited groundwater and high fluoride content in it. Water supply to the Unjha city is 9 MLD and the wastewater generated is 7 MLD. Unjha treats its wastewater through a pond-based treatment system. The municipality has been auctioning its treated water since last 40 years. 95% of wastewater is collected, treated and sold through auction annually. Minimum 3 tenders are required for the auction process. The successful bidder in turn sells the wastewater to farmers. The money received by municipality is sufficient for desilting every 3 years. Crops like tobacco, jawar, alfalfa, wheat, bajra and castor are grown by farmers using wastewater. Bajra and wheat are grown for self-consumption. However, no disease or health impact is reported after consuming these crops grown with wastewater. Unjha is upgrading its treatment technology. A new SBR-STP is being constructed by the Gujarat Water Supply and Sewerage Board and GUDC. Role of municipality is limited to land allocation only. The land is allocated in the same land where oxidation pond is located. It is not clear whether the ongoing formal process of supply of treated wastewater will continue, as storage of wastewater is essential for reuse distribution. The recommendations are: existing robust institutional mechanisms in line with EU's goals be continued post-upgradation in treatment technologies. The treated wastewater from pond is fit for irrigation. If the standards are fit for purpose, upgradation of technology is not required everywhere. Rajkot is one of the 8 metropolitan cities of Gujarat with a population of about 13 lakhs. It is administered by Rajkot Municipal Corporation. It is arid and drought prone. Water supply is 280 to 300 MLD. Its dependency on Narmada water is increasing over the years. 80% of water supply is disposed as wastewater, which is 215 MLD. Freshwater and wastewater exchange is happening in most cities. In Rajkot, it is formalized way back in 1962. Freshwater from Lalpuri and Dandarda Lake was exchanged with wastewater generated in city for farming through a contract. There are 6 functional and 2 under construction STPs in Rajkot. The functional capacities of these STPs is 216 MLD and the utilized capacity is 170 MLD. Other than the freshwater and wastewater swap, in 2014, Rajkot Municipal Corporation has entered into a contract with farmers cooperative for supply of treated wastewater. The wastewater flows are part of catchment of the Aji-2 and Nyari-2 dams. RMC is also in process of formalizing supply of treated water to industry and for recreation that would reduce supply of wastewater to these dams. Formal wastewater supply for irrigation is happening since many decades in Rajkot and is increasing very slowly. However, almost all the wastewater generated is used for irrigation in vicinity of the city. 16 villages irrigate more than 3,000 hectares with this wastewater. They claim productivity is 2 to 2.5 times higher when irrigated with wastewater. More than 60% area is still under agriculture in peripheries of Rajkot. Rajkot city is catchment for Nyari-2 and Aji-2 dams. Effectively, they are filled with wastewater which is used for agriculture in peripheries. This informal use is 30 times more than the formal use. The recommendations are: there will always be a considerable gap in formal and informal wastewater use in near future. Recognition of informal reuse is necessary to promote wastewater reuse. The farmers in command area of Aji-2 and Nyari-2 dams have the risk of lesser supply of wastewater with diversion of wastewater to other sectors. The RMC have to take cognition of it in reuse proposals. Thank you.
Dhanbad is a district municipal corporation located in Jharkhand and has a population of around 10 lakhs. DMC is responsible for urban governance along with other multiple actors such as JMADA, BCCL, PHED, etc. The second aspect that I wanted to highlight is that, in order to develop and understand and compile data about DMC's water resources, supply and consumption, a lot of referencing and back calculation was done by us. And this was basically because of the unavailability of structured and referenced data. The third aspect that I wanted to highlight in the overview is that the tributaries of River Damodar that drains majority of the DMC area are nothing but a common source of waste disposal. While we are talking about the formal systems, it is critical to begin by mentioning that there are no formal sewer lines and septage management in the city. Since 2016, DMC has been issuing license to private honeysuckers operators that is renewed on an annual basis. And this is being done largely to streamline the disposal of domestic sewage. According to the DMC official, domestic sewage as of now is being disposed at the FSTP at IIT ISM by the government operators. As regards the other formal systems, DMC is planning for 3 FSTPs. Work on one has actually begun by identification of land. There are 5 STPs that are planned, and the plans have already been developed, and they are reported to have combined capacity of almost about 234 MLD. In addition, the DMC has provided community, public, and modular toilets as well. The informal systems are actually the informal systems are the actual custodians of the sanitation system within the DMC, and hence extremely critical in the context of Dhanbad. Individual household latrines are the only substantive step towards securing safe sanitation at the municipal level. However, the household level wastewater are often disposed in the tributaries of River Damodar, and it is being used in pockets for agriculture and horticulture, basically water chestnuts, within the DMC area. In addition, there are 3 non-registered private honeysucker operators. This is what we have been able to identify till now. And according to them, the fecal sludge is either being released in the open drains or they are dumped outside the city limit on an ad hoc manner. While talking about thoughts about the future, these have stemmed during the ongoing study. There is a paucity of contextual, structured, triangulated data on the status of water and sanitation in DMC. Hence, a comprehensive documentation is required. Secondly, wastewater-based livelihoods must be promoted, as there is a potential, as demonstrated by these hidden producers. And last but not the least, awareness about the present sanitation scenario, challenges, and future strategies is a must amidst the citizenry of Dhanbad. Thank you.
Thiruvananthapuram is the capital of Kerala. It is bounded by the Arabian Sea on the west. It comprises hilly, midland, and coastal areas and has an undulating terrain. It has abundant water resources. It is the only city in Kerala with a full-fledged sewage system. In 2013, the sewage treatment plant was commissioned. In 2019, the STP also started treating septage waste. The city has set up a Uber model septage collection and disposal system. Following an NGT order in 2013, a survey was conducted to identify polluters and to prevent disposal of septage and fecal waste into water bodies. The key priorities for sanitation interventions in the city are the conversion of unsafe toilets, resolving the disparity between the charges for septic tank cleaning and the lack of sewerage tariff. There is no recovery and reuse of water. The sanitation interventions are mainly triggered by regulatory authorities. The municipal corporation looks after the septage collection and disposal. The Kerala Water Authority looks after wastewater. The COVID-19 pandemic is no doubt a setback, but hopefully with the youngest mayor and the oldest sewerage system, the city will soon see a renewed momentum in its quest for safe and sustainable sanitation solutions. Thank you.
Alappuzha municipality is situated in southern part of Kerala, is famous for its canals, lagoons and rivers. Alappuzha is famous for its backwaters and known as the Venice of the East. It is famous for its kayar, marine products, agriculture, and of course, tourism. Double pit toilets are not suited to the high water table of Alappuzha. Most households and establishments use septic tanks. Many are not scientifically designed and act as leach pits, polluting the groundwater. Septage and fecal sludge waste from households and other establishments, houseboats, etc., find their way into the canals. There are septic tank cleaning service providers who operate informally, charging between 3,000 to 5,000 rupees per emptying. There is no designated sewage farm or oxidation pond for the disposal of the waste collected. Canals that were the pride of Alappuzha became drains and waste dumps. In order to make them navigable and attractive to tourists, canal rejuvenation drives were started. At first, these were one-off initiatives. Both solid waste and septage waste needed to be addressed for canal rejuvenation. The Tumburmudi model aerobic composting, the clean home, clean city initiatives are notable initiatives during the period. To prevent direct discharge of toilet water into drains, a DWATS pilot model was set up. The Canal P program was supported by KILA, IIT Mumbai and other agencies for citywide canal cleaning. 3 local STPs and 2 FSTPs are planned under Amrut program of Government of India. The floods happened in 2018 were a wake-up call for the provision of safe sanitation facilities. The honeysucker operators were pressed into service by the municipal authorities for a temporary period, and the treatment facilities of public sector undertakings and other private agencies were used for the time. Here, this slide is a summary of planned and ongoing formal sanitation interventions in Alappuzha. Sanitation technology suited to Alappuzha's high water table remains a challenge. It is hoped that the septic tank cleaning and disposal services will be formalized in the near future with the provision of enough treatment facilities. A formal system to collect and treat septage, fecal sludge, along with Canal P program should help Alappuzha to live up to its Venice of the East tag.
Chennai. Chennai is a metropolis located in the state of Tamil Nadu. It has a population of 7.8 million. Surface, groundwater, and desaled water are the sources of Chennai water supply. Presently, Chennai water supply, CMWSB supplies 831 MLD of drinking water to citizens. While Anishaka's business is largely regulated, an informal sector also is operates. CMWSB has provided 100% sewer lines to the core area of the city. There are 12 sewage treatment plants in the city, generating 530 MLD of treated wastewater, out of which 146 MLD is being reused. Remaining 384 MLD of treated wastewater is released into Chennai waterways following CPCB norms. CMWSB emphasizing the reuse of treated wastewater from 1993. CMWSB has been selling 36 MLD of secondary treated wastewater to the petrochemical industries at the rate of rupees 22 per KL. This generates a revenue of rupees 13.5 crore annually. Chennai is the first Indian city to initiate biogas power generation as early as 2005. Total power generated is 1,34,534 kilowatts per hour up to 2018, and rupees 61.84 crores are cost savings on energy. Chennai was the first Indian city to recycle and reuse 25% of its wastewater. CMWSB has initiated a project of treating tertiary treated wastewater with reverse osmosis and to sell it to the industries at the rate of rupees 80 to 120 per kiloliter. Co-treatment facility is provided to decant the septage in 3 STPs. This is envisioned to end the practice of unauthorized dumping of septage into the city waterways. CMWSB has an ambitious grand plan of filling lakes in the city with tertiary treated ultrafiltration (TTUF) wastewater plants. The aim of the project is to have groundwater discharge as well as surface water augmentations and to set up water treatment plants next to these lakes and integrate the water into the city's drinking water supply. The vision of this project is to reduce the dependency on desaled water and groundwater to meet the sustainable security of the water in the city in case of any monsoon failures. Major significant key takeaways from city Chennai are: water scarcity acted as a driving force towards integrated urban water management. Co-treatment of septage, fecal sludge with sewage optimizes uses of treatment infrastructure and reduces pollution. CMWSD attempts to meet circular economy from energy recovery from wastewater to run STPs, also recharging lakes with tertiary treated ultrafiltration wastewater and thereby it into drinking water supply.
Devanahalli. Devanahalli is located in Bangalore rural district. It has a population of around 28,000. Devanahalli is drought prone and it is only groundwater dependent. What is happening to wastewater in Devanahalli? All the black water, that is fecal sludge from the households, is treated in a formally set up fecal sludge treatment plant. All the grey water from the households is led into stormwater drains. Untreated wastewater, mostly grey, from the stormwater drains is being used by farmers to grow fodder maize, spinach, flowers and vegetables. Farmers follow furrow irrigation, which ensures less human contact, and thereby farmers report very less health hazards. Before setting up a fecal sludge treatment plant, all the fecal sludge generated in the town was used by farmers as manure. In the words of a farmer, fecal sludge increases the fertility of the soil and it is the cheap and best of all the manures available. Currently, there are 5 private-owned honeysuckers who are operating in Devanahalli. To talk about FSTP bit in detail, Devanahalli FSTP was set up in the year 2015 and it is one of the first of its kind in the country. It is designed to treat 6,000 liters per day, although it is treating 3,000 liters a day. Municipal wet waste is added in the ratio 1:2. The co-compost generated is sold to the farmers at ₹7 per kg. There are various challenges faced by Devanahalli FSTP. Farmers who use the co-compost find the co-compost bit expensive and they also does not report very good results. Honeysuckers are giving fecal sludge to the farmers just outside the TMC boundary. The financial sustainability of the FSTP should be thought of. The treated wastewater from Etchen Valley of Bangalore is being filling Sihinit Kere Lake in Devanahalli, which is the only sweet water source. Recommendations: monitoring of Sihinit Kere for water quality, including open wells and bore wells, should be done. The financial sustainability of fecal sludge treatment plant should be thought of. Formalizing the honeysucker and farmers relationship using sanitation safety plan is one of the recommendations. Tumkur city is located very close to our state capital, Bengaluru. It has a population of around 3,20,000. Tumkur has no perennial source of water and it is majorly dependent on Hemavati water from Goruru Dam, which is about 170 kilometers away. Tumkur city has this sewerage network covered to just about 17% of the total households. Rest, that is 83% of the total households, are dependent on on-site sanitation. There are about 20 private-owned honeysuckers who are operating informally. There is a business opportunity where ₹10 lakhs of profits is being made annually. Farmers are using fecal sludge to grow arachinuts and coconuts. The demand for fecal sludge in Tumkur is more than its supply. Farmers report no health and environmental hazards. On-site sanitation. So there is one government-owned honeysucker who is operating formally, which empties the fecal sludge in the nearest manholes and also in the primary treatment plant. Off-site sanitation. There is one sewage treatment plant which is functioning since 2004. It is designed to treat 24.75 mld of wastewater, although it is treating just 10 mld of wastewater currently. The STP follows the technology of aerated oxidation pond. Post-treatment, the water is led into Bhimasandra Lake. The farmers of both Bhimasandra and the Melekote lakes, the water from Bhimasandra overflows into Melekote lake, are growing a medicinal crop which is locally called Bajai in about 200 acres of command area. Bajai is labor intensive and it provides a reliable livelihood for about 3,000 to 5,000 workers. Bajai has led to the doubling of farmers' income and farmers report there are no health hazards. Tumkur city has 4 major proposals. It is moving towards 24/7 water supply, which is the work in progress. And there is an ambitious plan of covering all the households in the city with the sewerage network, that is 100% UGD coverage under Smart City Vision. There is a major proposal of selling treated wastewater to the industries. And there's a proposal of implementing sequential batch reactor with additional 25 mld capacity. Recommendations: offsite sanitation. Treated wastewater should be proportionately distributed between industries and agriculture, considering the interest of budget farmers. With 100% UGD coverage in the city, there's a possibility of filling more lakes in the city with treated wastewater. On-site sanitation. Farmers and ANI sector should be formally integrated as solution providers.
Bengaluru. The Bengaluru metropolis has a population of 13 million people currently. It has a specialized institution, the Bengaluru Water Supply and Sewerage Board, for management of its water and wastewater. The city officially sources 1,440 million liters of water per day from Kaveri River, which is 85 kilometers away and 300 meters below the city. Approximately another 600 mld of deficit is met by groundwater. 80% of this, that is 1,640 mld, is generated as wastewater. The regional topography of the city is formed in such a manner that the uncaptured wastewater flows out of the city through the Vrishabhavati Valley and the Dakshin Pinakini stream. This has been informally picked up by farmers for more than 4 to 5 decades. This wastewater is used to grow all kinds of crops such as vegetables, greens, fodder, ragi, paddy, mulberry, flowers, excepting for a few root vegetables. Farmers have made huge private investments of 10 to 20 lakhs to pump it as far as 15 kilometers. A simple pre-treatment such as sedimentation in a shallow pond or an open well is followed before using it via drip irrigation. The city has approximately 1 million sewer connections. Formally, the city has achieved a decentralized system of wastewater treatment plants with a total of 37 number under the BWSSB with 1,700 mld capacity. Additionally, 19 smaller wastewater treatment plants by lakes are under the purview of BBMP. There are also approximately 3,000 smaller wastewater treatment plants all across the city at an apartment and gated layout scale. Formally, the government has launched a first-of-its-kind irrigation project to transfer 810 mld of secondary treated wastewater from Bengaluru for the groundwater recharge in the drought-affected districts of Kolar, Chikballapur and Anekal. The KC Valley project uses 440 mld of treated wastewater to fill 134 tanks in Kolar, and similarly, there are others. These projects significantly tie the city to the agricultural hinterland. By providing secondary treated wastewater to these drought-affected districts, it safeguards the livelihoods of the farmers, and in turn, it also offers food security for the city. At different levels, Bengaluru has examples of managing this treated wastewater for agricultural, ecological, and industrial reuse. At a smaller scale, Jakku Lake is an example for the reuse of treated wastewater for ecological purposes. There is a 15 mld wastewater treatment plant in this lake, funded by the KPCL. Apart from this, there are also artificial wetlands integrated into the treatment mechanism. This water is facing a conflict of interest with respect to industrial reuse, as it is to be given to a power plant which will deprive the lake of its ecological reuse of treated wastewater. As another example, BEL has rejuvenated Dodda Bomasandra Lake as a part of its CSR activity, and it has set up a wastewater treatment plant with SBR technology of 10 mld capacity. The lake receives 8 mld of water, and BEL will also benefit from 2 mld for horticultural reuse. The city aims for a 100% sewerage network, thus increasing the availability of treated wastewater. The treated wastewater now has a huge demand for agricultural, ecological, industrial, and urban reuse. But there's no policy framework for the just distribution between all these uses, for which a system needs to be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, all the speakers, for sharing the insight with regard to the preliminary report on the learnings and what are the challenges which the cities are facing with regard to sanitation. Vishwanath, would you do the closing and then we can take some questions? Sorry, I forgot that.
Yeah, I'll just try. As my colleagues, you would have noticed, are potential players for Bollywood. They've learned the Pecha Kucha style of presentation. I've done it in 3 minutes, capturing histories of cities and sanitation systems of cities, which are so comprehensive in such big time. This is the era of the vertical meetings, Zoom meetings, and so therefore we can afford to be in time. So a big thanks to all my colleagues for having done such a fabulous job. Some of the key learnings or key questions or key recommendations from us, or questions that emerge is, who owns wastewater? So if there's an informal reuse of wastewater happening with farmers, can the city decide to turn off the wastewater tap and switch it off to industries and urban use? It's a question that will confront us. So many wastewater policies now are starting to recognize agricultural reuse of wastewater as one component of it, and therefore take a balanced decision when it comes to bifurcating the use between ecological reuse, agricultural reuse, and industrial reuse. Each town has a key supplemental driver, apart from the need to cover the city or town with safe sanitation. There's something else that drives sanitation in the city. For example, Alappuzha has this image of the Venice of the East, and therefore wants to clean up its canals and bring it into life as a tourist destination, as a place for recreation. Therefore wants to focus on sanitation and make sure that sanitation treats all the septic tank effluents that come. Thiruvananthapuram has this particular conflict between a fully subsidized sewerage network, where if you're connected to the sewerage network, you hardly pay anything. But if you have to have your septic tank empty, you pay between 5,000 to 7,000 rupees. So how do you balance off the costs and the trade-off between fecal sludge management and sewerage network? Chennai is driven by the scarcity of water and therefore wants to use wastewater as a drinking water source. So it wants to do tertiary treatment, fill up its lakes and pick it up from groundwater as a drinking water source for the city itself, something similar to the Singapore model. Bangalore wants to address it in such a fashion that all its hinterland, which is drought prone and climate change affected, where farmers can make a livelihood if they get access to water, therefore ensuring farmers' livelihoods, climate change resilience, and perhaps food security for the city. So what is therefore the relationship between the city and its hinterland? And through fresh water, which it sources from the catchment, by minimizing that use, and then by making sure that treated wastewater reaches the hinterland, can the city be a net provider for water rather than a net consumer of water, right, in the physical sense? So these are the imaginations. Cities have to learn from each other. Bangalore doesn't do anything at all about its fecal sludge management, honeysuckers at all. In theory, it does a very little. Whereas Chennai has been able to integrate fecal sludge honeysuckers with the sewage treatment plant, and therefore co-treatment has become possible there. So how do we do quick exchange of information? Cities which are moving from on-plot sanitation systems to sewage systems, the case of Dhanbad, have to negotiate and fit in an FS model in the middle. Aspirationally, many cities are sewerage oriented, right? They may not have the funds, but getting a sewerage connection or a sewerage network seems to drive up property value, and people prefer areas of sewerage network coverage rather than on-plot coverage. How are these aspirations to be met when the monies may not be there? In regard to fecal sludge itself, and can land application of fecal sludge be considered as an alternative till FSTPs are set up? Or if FSTPs become costly, can we develop a protocol so that farmers are benefited from the fecal sludge in a health risk mitigated manner and an environmental risk managed manner? Data remains a challenge because even in our towns and cities, how do we figure a data framework whereby cities at least track the service level benchmark, but more importantly, democratize data so that at a ward level, at a ward committee level, data is available to its citizens as to how many houses have water connection, how many have sanitation connection, and if it's on-plot sanitation connection, what is the compact between the citizens and the city to manage sanitation as a human right, eschewing manual scavenging, of course, but also the city providing sanitation services as a service chain, not just a value chain, but also as a service chain. So these are some of the learnings that are emerging, and we hope to coalesce and condense it in the coming days. Be happy to take questions, and I'm sure my colleagues will be more than happy to answer if it's specifically directed to them. Over to you, Mary.
Thanks a lot, Vishwanath, and all the speakers. The floor is open for questions. If you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can write it in the chat box. We have a couple of them. Aparna has raised a question, and I think it is to you, Vishwanath, if you can see the chat section. The question is with regard to the typology driving sanitation is a very critical observation. In an ideal scenario, typology would define sanitation technology selection, which in turn would impact the later parts of the service chain.
Yes, yeah, Aparna, I get the question. I just answered it very briefly. Like I mentioned in my introduction also, the typology seems to be predominantly hydrogeology and rainfall defined in terms of the availability of water, the height of the groundwater table. For example, in Alappuzha, the canal waters and the high groundwater table makes any conventional sanitation technology a challenge. And as Meenakshi Sundaram had said, that if Alappuzha goes in for a sewage network, it will have to be pressurized or pump sewage systems, perhaps. So that would be the cutting edge technology that's needed. So the typologies would also vary on socioeconomic conditions, and we have to get to that. So socioeconomic conditions and physical conditions, and hopefully with your help, so helpful in the study, we'll be able to better define it before we get to the end product.
Okay. Then it's Parth who has two questions. One is with regard to I think the first question, if you or anybody else would like to answer, and the second one is specifically with the Tumkur study.
Yeah, so let me just answer the first one, and then Rakshita can perhaps take the second one. So the thing is this part that while we are going to do huge, so Rakshita, yeah, okay. Rakshita says that she's afraid, and so therefore I'll answer on her behalf. She said that in Kannada, that scream, so apologies for that. So here is the thing, Parth. Till investments come into all our towns with either FSTPs or STPs, there will be a legacy period whereby we'll have to deal with the informal. Right? So when we're dealing with the informal, rather than absorbing it as part of the standards, perhaps we can take the sanitation safety plan approach of the World Health Organization and do a risk mitigation approach till we get to the technological levels of FSTPs and STPs in our towns and cities. Right? So we cannot shy away from the problem because it will take time for these systems to be in place and to run. So should the CPHO be establishing a standard practice? Yes, perhaps it could, and move away from standards and incorporate the SSP as part of its manual. I think it's already doing that with its land application draft manual. Already that approach is being taken. So it's a good approach in my opinion. So study in Tumkuru reflects that farmers have reported no health and environmental hazard. So one of the things is that we've been confronted with the fact that the general narrative seems to be that fecal sludge and wastewater, if applied untreated, has great health impacts. However, we were also confronted with the fact that farm workers and farmers in general reported nothing wrong with them, and we could not find any health indicators there to show that they were impacted negatively, apart from small skin irritation issues. Right? So perhaps we need to take a relook as to what are the risks that we are ready to take. For example, if in farms, drip irrigation, wastewater is applied as drip irrigation, or if non-edible crops are grown, would that not be taking us a great deal forward in managing health risks? And can we not incorporate that? So therefore, cannot cities think of special agricultural zones as becoming part of the master plan so that the waste of the city, including the biodegradable solid waste, as well as fecal sludge, as well as wastewater, is possible to be absorbed by this special agricultural zone hinterland. Right? That's something that we can think of as part of the circular economy model. But Vijay, you want to take this question? How are you planning to integrate your plan with SBM-U and JJM-U missions? We don't have those plans before us right now, Rahul. So Vijay, you want to answer that?
Yes, it's pretty much what you said. We are not exactly making plans. We are, analyzing the practices and looking at what takeaways are there for others. Are these things replicable? What are the commonalities? What are, and also we're trying to highlight the diversities. The triggers could be different in different cities. And so their solution also needs to be like that. And it's like, what they want from it. If you want recovery of waste, if that is your aim and there is a market for it, then obviously, starting from your toilet technology, you will plan it like that. So we're not exactly making plans from this exercise, but we're trying to see what lessons it holds for policy, for program, and to learn from different approaches. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so I'll just add one item to it, Mary. So we're also looking at conflict management, right? In Unja, for example, when the farmers are already negotiated a place for wastewater and it's contracted out and it's reused, or in Rajkot, by depriving the farmers of this resource, we may cause a conflict between the farming community as well as the cities. So if we understand the system better, then perhaps we could mitigate the conflict at an early stage itself and make sure that there's a just apportionment of the wastewater and the sludge between the farmers as well as the city and other users, right? And so it holds good for other cities also. So that's our tackle, that's our angle.
Thanks, Vishwanath. We have other is there any other question which you have for any of the speakers, participants? No? As we have other speakers also, I know it's 9 minutes a bit late from our scheduled time, but if any of the speaker would want to share some interesting or fascinating thing while doing the on-ground research, although you have shown it in the presentation, but if you would want to share it with a larger audience, please go ahead.
Rakshita, do you want to talk about, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Rakshita, do you want to talk about the budget cultivation?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. So in case of Tumkur, there's a conflicting interest in terms of the treated wastewater use for irrigation as well as for the industrial use. So as per the proposal given, so all the treated wastewater generated in the town will be transferred to the industries. So if that is the case, then the farmers will be deprived of the treated wastewater and their livelihoods will be badly affected. So one of our recommendation was to consider the interest of the livelihoods and proportionately distribute the treated wastewater between agricultural and irrigation use. So this is our recommendation.
Thanks, Rakshita.
Yeah, so that just sort of answers Part's second question, Mary, just as a follow-up on Tumkuru.
Yes.
So what we're able to do, Part, is that we've been able to point this out to the industrial, so Karnataka is drafting an industrial reuse of wastewater policy in which industries take treated wastewater from cities and towns, right? So we've made sure that in this policy, which is at a draft stage, that industries consider that agricultural reuse would already be existing, take note of existing reuses, and then only apportion the part of it to themselves, which is equitable, right? Which is equitable. So we're able to push these learnings already into some form of policy recommendation.
Great. Saji sir, Eklavya Prasad sir, if you have or Alka ma'am, if you would want to share some of the interesting learning, over to you. Or we will, and then we'll close the webinar.
So
we call it a day.
Thanks. I just wanted to point out the institutions which are existing, even with wastewater. They are either market-based or cooperation-based. So there are, wastewater cooperatives which are functional, operational since many, many decades. But somehow, it lacks a mention in reuse policies. So a cognizance of those institutions which are working, thriving, and functional from so many years can be considered for reuse. The institutions are present, they are existing, working, and it's in tandem with the municipality. So there is a user and municipality. There are formal mechanisms which have evolved over time. So in any of the 10 states which have made reuse policies, these do not reflect there. So I would just request, that the reuse policies also look at what is happening in terms of institutions on the ground and talk about it. Thank you.
Very good point, ma'am. Thank you.
Mehreen-ji, I would like to come here.
Please go ahead, sir.
The thing is that while we were doing this study, we realized that there is this immense paucity of any kind of information about the sanitation and water scenario. Now, in that kind of a kind of a situation, anything could be rolled out and people would be totally oblivious about it. So, though it sounds very basic, as I said in my presentation, there is nothing in Dhanbad. So there is an immense potential to create something out here. And to begin with, a dedicated, streamlined effort with regard to sanitation and water is definitely required. And other cities as well, which is like similar to what we see in Dhanbad. Thank you.
Completely agreed. Who else? Now I'm making a con call. Saji sir, we have Meenakshi Sundaram. Sir, if you would want to share your inputs.
This is actually for Saji to say, but something I learned from him is that in the city of Alappuzha, the septic tank, the trucks that, okay, just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, the honeysucker trucks, the owners and the cleaners together have formed an association and they're going to demand treatment facilities. So I thought that was something really awesome.
Great.
And this was actually Saji's point. I think I stole that from him.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right. So
they created a union there. They have a union, a registered union.
Yes, it's CITU backed. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers and the participants. It's always fascinating and enriching at the same time to learn from the on-ground research. What you learn from the on-ground, it's something exceptionally comprehensive in nature. We look forward for the exciting work which Biome and other organizations together are putting forward. And we would share it in the public domain. Thank you very much. Thank you to the speakers and the participants for taking the time out and sharing the learnings. We will meet again soon. Thank you very much.